When I moved into my new neighborhood, I knew I'd have to deal with the infamous HOA and their iron-fisted president. Karen. Stories about her had already reached me. How she nitpicked lawns, counted the number of cars in driveways, and even measured the shade of paint on people's shutters. Still, I never thought I'd become her primary target. That changed one Friday morning, when I walked outside, to find my phone buzzing with furious messages. "Why would you vandalize the park wall?" one read. Another accused me of spray painting slurs across the community's welcome sign. Confused, I rushed over to the park, where I found Karen already standing with two board members, arms crossed, glaring at me like I was a criminal. "There he is," she announced dramatically, as though she were unveiling a villain. "He's the one who ruined our property. I saw him sneaking around last night with a can of spray paint. My jaw nearly hit the ground. Are you serious? I was home all night. I don't even own spray paint." Karen smirked. Convenient. But I saw what I saw, and the HOA takes vandalism very seriously. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Some residents had gathered too, whispering and pointing at me. My face burned with frustration. I'd barely lived here a few months, and now Karen was dragging my name through the mud. I tried to defend myself, explaining that I worked late shifts and had been home. But Karen kept interrupting. "Don't lie," she sneered. "You think you can make a fool out of this community? You'll pay for this." Her voice carried authority, but I knew something didn't add up. Why would she claim she saw me when she lived 2 streets away? And why did she sound so rehearsed, as if she'd been planning this? I felt cornered, humiliated. But then a small detail hit me. The city had recently installed new street cameras throughout the neighborhood after a string of car break-ins. One of those cameras was mounted on the lamppost right across from the park wall. I kept quiet for the moment, letting Karen gloat and spin her story. But inside, a spark of hope ignited. If those cameras worked, then they could prove what really happened and finally expose Karen's obsession with controlling everyone. For now, though, all I could do was hold my ground while Karen demanded punishment, and my neighbors whispered in disapproval. Little did she know, the truth was already recorded, waiting to flip the entire narrative upside down. The very next day, I received a letter taped to my front door. It was stamped with the HOA logo and signed by none other than Karen herself. The letter accused me of vandalism, demanded $2,000 for damages, and threatened legal action if I didn't comply within 2 weeks. I stood there on my porch, clutching the paper, my stomach twisting. This wasn't just about embarrassment anymore. Karen was trying to drain me financially, and judging by her smug grin when I walked past her yard, she was enjoying every second of it. I knew I couldn't ignore this. But when I tried speaking to some of my neighbors, the reactions were mixed. A few believed me, saying Karen had a history of exaggerations. Others shook their heads, muttering that the cameras don't lie, since Karen claimed she saw me. One neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, leaned in and whispered, "She's been gunning for you since you moved in. Your car, your late hours, she thinks you don't fit here. Be careful. She'll stop at nothing." The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules. She wanted me out, and now she had manufactured a scandal to do it. The HOA board called an emergency meeting, insisting I attend. When I walked in, Karen sat at the head of the table, acting like a judge ready to hand down a sentence. Her binder was filled with printed photos of the vandalism, and she waved them around like damning evidence. "This community deserves respect," she declared. "And when someone disrespects our property, they should be held accountable. We can't allow criminals in our midst." I clenched my fists under the table. "I didn't do it. There are cameras near the park. If you're so sure it was me, let's check the footage." Her eyes flickered just for a second. Then she recovered, smirking again. "Unfortunately, the city doesn't give residents access to footage. Only the HOA has the authority to request it." That sounded suspicious. Why would she resist checking footage if she was so confident in her accusation? The board hesitated, murmuring among themselves. I pressed harder. "If the HOA really cares about the truth, prove it. Get the footage. If it shows me, I'll take full responsibility. But if not, maybe you should stop targeting innocent neighbors." The room went silent. Karen's face tightened, but she couldn't outright refuse. Finally, she snapped, "Fine, we'll see what the footage says. But don't get your hopes up." As I left the meeting, I knew the tide was turning. Karen had pushed too hard, and the one thing she overlooked, the cameras, was about to unravel everything. A week later, the HOA scheduled another meeting. This time, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Residents had caught wind of the camera footage request, and everyone was eager to see what it revealed. I sat in the back, trying to stay calm while Karen strutted in with her usual superiority. The city official in charge of the cameras arrived, carrying a small laptop. He plugged it into the projector and the room hushed. Karen leaned forward, visibly sweating now, though she tried to hide it with forced confidence. "Play the footage," one board member instructed. The screen flickered, showing the night in question. At first, the street appeared empty. Then, around midnight, a figure walked into view. My heart pounded, but then relief washed over me. It wasn't me. The person was shorter, heavier, and wore a hoodie with the hood pulled up. The figure carried a bag and spray paint cans, tagging the wall quickly before hurrying off. But then came the moment that silenced the entire room. The hood slipped. The face was caught clearly under the streetlight. It was Karen. Gasps rippled through the board members and neighbors. Karen's jaw dropped and her face drained of color. She lunged toward the official, shouting, "Turn that off! That's not me, it's doctored! Someone hacked the footage." But it was too late. The evidence was undeniable. The timestamp matched her accusations, and the camera quality was clear enough to erase any doubt. The HOA board turned to her, stunned. One member finally said, "Karen, why would you do this? You tried to frame your own neighbor?" She sputtered, pointing at me. "He set this up. He framed me! He must have paid someone to—" "No," the official cut in firmly. "This footage comes directly from the city's secure system. It cannot be altered by residents." The silence that followed was crushing. I stood slowly, locking eyes with Karen. "You wanted me gone so badly you vandalized your own community and blamed me. How many times have you lied to everyone here before?" The board's chairperson slammed the gavel. "Karen, this is unacceptable. You've abused your authority and slandered a member of this community. You're officially removed as HOA president, effective immediately." The room erupted, some in shock, others in relief. Neighbors turned away from Karen, whispering angrily. For once, her power had slipped through her fingers, and I just stood there vindicated at last. The fallout from that meeting was swift. By the next morning, news of Karen's exposure had spread across the entire neighborhood. The same people who had whispered and doubted me now came knocking at my door, apologizing for believing her lies. Some even offered to help me file a formal complaint. Karen, meanwhile, had gone into hiding. Her once perfectly manicured lawn grew wild, and her blinds stayed shut. I heard she resigned not only from the HOA, but also from a local committee she bragged about constantly. Her reputation was shattered, and no one wanted anything to do with her anymore. The HOA board sent me a letter of apology, officially retracting the false accusations and assuring me I wouldn't face any fines or charges. They even asked if I'd consider joining the board, though I politely declined. I'd had enough HOA drama to last a lifetime, but what surprised me most was how the incident united the community. For so long, people had been afraid of Karen's control. Now that she was gone, neighbors started talking to each other more, sharing stories about times she had bullied them. We laughed, we commiserated, and for the first time, the neighborhood actually felt like a community instead of a dictatorship. One evening, Mrs. Thompson stopped by with cookies and said, "You know, we all owe you. If you hadn't pushed for that footage, who knows how long she would have kept terrorizing us." I smiled, though I couldn't help but feel a little sorry for Karen. Her downfall wasn't just about me, it was about years of her abusing power, finally catching up with her. Still, I was proud that I hadn't let her break me. She tried to frame me, to ruin me, but the truth came out. And in the end, justice wasn't just about clearing my name, it was about freeing the entire neighborhood from her grip. Looking back, I realized Karen's biggest mistake wasn't vandalizing the wall or even lying. It was underestimating the power of the truth. She thought her voice carried more weight than reality itself. But cameras don't play favorites. They don't bend to authority or fear. They simply record what happens. And what they recorded that night turned the tables forever. Now, when I walk past that wall, freshly repainted and clean, I don't see vandalism. I see justice. And I see the day a so-called queen of the neighborhood lost her crown to the one thing she couldn't control, reality.